Testing. Perfect. All right. I'm just gonna start right away. Hello. This is a basic guide to animation. I'm just gonna make a really quick animation, and the goal of this stream is to show you how to do the technical part of the animation. Because there's a few different steps, and there's plenty of videos on the internet about this. But I figured might as well do it anyways. Okay, so I'm gonna do a digital animation in Photoshop using layers. Okay, but before I start, um, under the looping animation, the assignments page, I have info on animation, 12 principles of animation, basic and in-depth explanations, and 10 principles of motion design. So this is the 10 principles of motion design in a GIF, which makes it easier to say or makes it easier to take a look at. Things aren't always just straightforward. Things are based on perception, physics, how humans behave, stuff like that. It's pretty interesting. So these are things that give characters, objects a little bit more character when they're in motion. So it's a good thing to look at. But yeah, these two videos I have right here, just type in 12 principles of animation and you'll get plenty of videos. But I felt like these were pretty good ones. Okay, so yeah. All right, so I'm going to start by opening up Photoshop. I don't think it's going to be too different from this 2017 version to the 2021 version. Okay. So this is going to end up being a GIF. GIF, whatever. I'm just going to call it a GIF because that's easier to say for me. So this is just going to live on the internet, and I'm only going to make mine 500 by 500 pixels. So I'm going to do the web preset details width 500. Oops. Height 500. And I'm going to uncheck artboards. I don't like artboards in Photoshop, but maybe you do, but I'm not going to do it. All right, so we'll go to create. All right, so let me do the regular workspace. Oops. Okay, so this is a pretty small square. If we do something larger, it's gonna take a lot more processing power to render everything. So if you have a high-end computer, like a gaming computer or something with that can handle animations really well, then you can go bigger. But if not, then smaller is probably better, and it'll take less time. And there's no size requirement necessarily for this assignment, but it's just good to keep in mind like what your computer is capable of and how you want to view it, if you're going to post it on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, how big it needs to be. All right. So, I'm going to start off by putting a background. I'm just going to use this really cheesy gradient, which I love, unironically. Oops, upside down. So this will be our background. Okay. All right. So when we're doing our animation, sometimes you'll want to have a background and sometimes you'll want it to be transparent. So I'm going to show you both ways, but I'm going to start off with the background. Okay, so the background layer is something I never work on. To me, it's always good to just have a base that exists. Um, when it comes to doing like making drawings or paintings, I always prefer to keep it white. But since I'm doing a quick animation thing, and I know I'm going to use this background, I'm fine with this. So I'm gonna start by adding a new layer, and I'm just gonna do like a ball bouncing or yeah, a ball bouncing because that's very simple. So I use my, I actually use a pencil tool. So pencil tool is more of a pixel based tool like you would have in MS Paint or whatever. Okay. So I'm going to start off with just a ball here. Okay. I'm going to press Control 0, which would be Command 0 if you're using Mac, to fit the canvas in the window. Okay, so here's my first frame. Here's where the animation starts. Okay, so I'm going to add another frame. And by adding another layer, you'll add your second frame. But when you put it here, you'll see that it's on top. Let me redraw that. It's on top. What's the deal with that? So what we're gonna do later is convert these layers into frames. Okay, so there's this thing you'll want to do. I don't know if it's called onion skinning here, but onion skinning is the process of seeing the frames before and after the current frame you're working on. So we're going to do a type of, I don't know, cheap onion skinning, 99-cent onion skinning. So we have our first, I'm going to keep these up as reference, okay? So now we're on our third layer. And this is right here. Okay. And now we're going to do our fourth layer. All right, so going back to one of the principles. Where is it? So I'm gonna use it's not here, but like basically like the squishing here. It says squash. Yeah, squash here. See how the ball kind of elongates. So I'm gonna do a little squash here. And oops. Okay, so now I'm getting confused about like all the there's too many layers right now, so I'm gonna turn the other layers off for now. Okay, so that looks good. So I'm gonna flatten this here. Oop, that's a little bit too big. So I'm gonna start by flattening this here. Add the next layer. I'm gonna make it squish a lot more. One thing that may not be as apparent is when you do the squishing and like this, the total area of the ball here should be about the same here, or looks similar. Okay. So now I'm going to add the next layer, which would be kind of the same as the one before. And then this one I'm going to stretch out like this. See how that works? I'm going to turn my first layer for the reference. And yeah, I'll put one more like that. Okay, so now it looks like a complete mess. All right, so this isn't perfect. This is like, I'm just practicing right now. But you'll definitely want to check on your layers more thoroughly. Okay, so here's here's the important part. So let's say you're finished with your animation and you're ready to see it in motion. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go to Window, Workspace, and change it to Motion. Okay, and this brings up this timeline down here. If you use Premiere before or another video editing program, it's the same concept. Okay, so down here, there's options: create video timeline or create frame animations. You want to create frame animation. Okay, so right now what we have is this frame animation, but what we want is a total of all of our frames here together. Okay, so in order to put all these frames or all these layers to frames, we'll have to go to this option right here and then make frames from layers. Okay. All right. So before we do anything, notice what we have here. So we have this gradient here, and then basically the frames are right here. So let's press play and see what happens. Okay, so it literally took every frame and put into a layer where I wanted this in the background the entire time. So I'm going to actually play this at a slower speed. So I'm going to select the first one on the left, frame 1, and then hold shift, select the last frame. So I have these all selected. And any of these where it says 0 seconds, I'm going to click there and change it to something else. I'll just say 0.5 seconds. And then we'll play it. So now we see something that's easier to see. But another thing we can do is down here where it says once, we'll change this to forever. And so this will play it over and over. Okay, so now we see our animation, which looks fine. Okay. All right, so those are the basic controls on how to do animation. So now I'm going to click this one in the timeline. All right, this one I want to be behind all of them. I'm going to click over here and match layer across frames. Okay, and I've never found a time where I needed these to change, so I'm just always going to keep them. Okay, so now I'm going to press play. Oops. That wasn't. Oh, I see what happened. All right, so I need to have this selected, apparently. And now I'm going to go ahead and do that. Match layers across frames. Hit OK. And then I can press play to check. All right. So this frame has nothing. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And then press play. And there we go. Obviously, this is a little bit too slow, so I'm going to select the first layer, hold shift, click on the last layer. I'll change this to 0.1 second. Then we have our little animation. Okay, obviously this will be a lot more, you'll be putting a lot more work than this. But let's export it because I'm pretty much finished at this point. I do have something else to show though. So I'm going to go to File, Export, and then Save for Web Legacy. Okay, and that brings up this panel. All right. So yeah, it looks pretty wonky. That's because we only have 16 colors here. Okay, so you want to make sure this is GIF preset. Yeah, I guess there's different settings. So let's try GIF 128 dithered. Yeah, that looks fine. But yeah, so you can do, I don't know what that is, honestly. It adds effects. So number of colors you can have up to 256. The more colors you have, the longer it'll take to load. But if it's small, it's not going to make a whole lot of. It's not going to take a lot more time. Transparency, if you want transparency in the background, we don't have to worry about that. Dithering, that's all right. Let's see. Dithering, there's diffusion, pattern, and noise. So I'll go to different. So that's pattern. This is noise. Let me do even less colors. So if you do want to have it a lot less colors, you can do diffusion, pattern. I want to show you pattern in like 4 colors. It has this like old school, what's called Bayer matrix dithering. But we're going to go back to 256. All right, so to make sure it's just like you want it, we'll click preview. This will open up in the browser. Okay, and that's what it'll look like in the web. And so it gives the information down here, what it looks like. Okay, so you can also change the image size here, as well as the percent and quality. I just keep it to bilinear. That's texture filtering, I think. Then we'll save it, and then I'll save it to class files. Oh, I forgot to put that. Yeah. Basic. All right. And then we'll go to class files. Where is it? Desktop. Class files. Double click it. And there we go. I'll upload the Discord. All right. So that's great. So there's one more thing I want to show. And it's called actions. It's not going to have a super great use here. But you might be able to use it somehow. So there's this thing called actions. We'll go to Window, Actions. And what this does is more or less it creates filters automatically. It does a lot of different steps. So let's just say we want to add cache shadows to all of this. So I'll click layer 1. In the actions, I'm going to click cache shadow, and I'll press play. And it automatically adds a cache shadow. Cast shadow there. All right. So then going to click layer 2. Going to press play. It automatically adds a cache shadow. Let's try a different one. Water reflection. Let's try this out and know what this is. Okay, so it automatically adds this sort of water reflection like thing. So in order to see what that means, I'm going to click this arrow pointing down. So it makes a snapshot, which means it sort of captures the layer before it makes any changes. It converts to RGB color mode, rasterizes layer type, and does all of these actions. But so like, for example, if you're putting a filter on where you want to add like ripple and motion blur and change the hue and saturation to tons of different layers, then this is something we can do. So I'm going to hold on. Duplicate layer. All right. So When we press play on one of these actions, that's how that happens. So what this means, we have molten lead selected. We'll press play. That'll put an action on there. Yeah, molten lead's a pretty weird use case. Oh, we're going backwards in time. Those are all the actions just from pressing that play button when we have molten lead selected. But let's say we want to make our own thing. So what we're going to do is we'll click this new page icon, which is create new action. We'll call this, I don't know, that, sure. You can put it in whatever folder you want. There's only default actions. You'll have to create your own folder. Function key, you can bound it to a key or bind it to a key. Change the color as far as the label on it. So we'll hit record, and when you hit record, anything you do from now on, that will be recorded in the action. So we'll start by going to image. Let's see. Adjustments. Let's do levels. Oh, what? How is that empty? Okay, I guess we'll do something else. We'll do filter, blur, box blur. What? That's not empty? What? All right, we'll click on layer 1. Select layer 1. Okay. I don't like that, so I'm going to... We'll delete this later. All right. So we'll go to filter, blur, box blur. We'll change the radius to smaller. We'll hit OK. So now the box blur's recorded. We'll go to image, adjustments, levels, change the levels of it. That doesn't really make a difference, does it? It's because this dang filter we have. We'll do... No, that'd be too intense. And we'll do pixelate, mezzotint, sure. That... All right, so let's say you do a few things like that. And then you're done, you'll hit stop. Let's say we don't want this. We'll just click this and drag it to the trash. All right, so let's say we want to add this filter with these 2 steps to layer 4. So we'll go to layer 4. Make sure we have the name of the action selected, not one of the items below. And then we can press play, and they'll do that. I don't know if I mentioned this, but after you're done recording action, you just hit the stop button. Okay, so if you're doing hand-drawn animations, it might not be super useful. I'm sure there's ways you can apply that they're not coming to me off the top of my head. But if you're using photos, then that's something that'd be very useful. Okay. All right, so that's it for today, basically. And the next animation, I'll be going over, what is it called? Rotoscoping and maybe stop motion. Okay, so yeah, that's about it. I might even do it Friday. Who knows? All right, thanks for watching. I hope this helps. Take care.